So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first introduce the three authors of the paper who are on stage today. So I have with me Amrita Asrani. She's the Global Brand Marketing Director for Laundry and Fabric Care at Reckitt. I have my colleague Ritesh. He's Senior Manager at Nielsen IQ Basis. And I'm Vidya, and I lead Nielsen IQ Basis for South Asia. The paper that we are going to be presenting today is about STMs, or simulated test marketing, most often used for obtaining a volume forecast. Now, STMs have been around for decades, and they have served their purpose fairly well. So why do a rethink about them now? So that's exactly what this paper of ours is all about. Can you click? So let's take a step back and look at why STMs were launched in the first place. The quest for new product development, led by the interest in innovation and the need to understand how these innovations are actually going to fare in market and get some predictions about their success, perhaps led to the thinking about STMs. As societies and markets evolved, and new emerging consumer trends came about, marketers had a need to keep pace and launch new product innovations. And innovation, as we know, is important to stay ahead of the curve, differentiate from competition, and achieve business growth objectives. But it's not really easy to get innovation right. Nearly a third of promising innovations actually don't receive the support that they should deserve in the first place in order to fulfill their potential. And again, you have a staggering amount of resources being put behind innovations that perhaps should not have been launched in the first place. So in a majority of the cases, what we actually see is that the innovation that is launched does not really meet a relevant need. And in fact, this has been seen in about 75% of the innovations that have been tested. And even if the concept actually succeeds in passing all the success benchmarks, in about half the cases, the product that has been developed does not really match up to the expectations created by the concept. And it's in about it's only in about two-thirds of the cases that marketers actually have the willingness to support the launch in market. So the arena of innovation is actually fraught with failure, taking its toll on brands, profits, and even careers. Test marketing was resorted to and is still used in quite a few cases in order to reduce the uncertainties associated with new product launches, but we know what the downsides of that are. So enter innovation, or enter STMs in order to help optimize new product launches and increase their probability of success. Now, STMs help answer a number of questions. They help you understand whether the product meets a relevant consumer need, what the triggers and the barriers are towards adopting that particular product. Is the pricing strategy correct? Is the packaging done right? What is the target consumer that this product is actually catering to? And above all, they help arrive at a volume estimate for the different levels of marketing support that has been planned. The forecasts that STMs provide actually help not just marketing, but also production, finance, and of course, top level management. So then why take a relook at STMs today? The status quo on STMs would have continued had it not been, for the fact that the brick and mortar marketplace is actually slowly being overtaken by digital shelves. Omnichannel shopping has now become a byword. Consumers actually just searched online and they bought offline, or they visited malls to, take a look at products, touch and feel them, take photographs if you please, and then actually go and buy online for the freebies and the discounts that they got. Awareness about new launches also came out, not just from conventional TV or radio or out of home as it did in the last so many years, but today you become aware of new products while scrolling on your phone, while being exposed to viral messages on social media, or while shopping mindlessly online. So omni-channel today actually is kind of, what we are seeing happening all around us. And not just that, pretty soon they'll give way to e-com only launches or DTC launches, and that's something that we are also seeing happen. So the forecast that STM's, e-com today is, go to the next. E-com today has become even more significant during COVID. And it seems to be something that's, come to stay. A BCG report that we looked at says that online retail spending is going to hit about $300 billion by the time it is 2030. E-com, therefore, had to be factored into STMs. It's become another significant channel of distribution to be considered, and in many cases, perhaps it's the only distribution channel. Similarly, digital media has now begun to contribute significantly to awareness. And awareness and distribution, as we know it, are the two key levers when it comes to any volume forecasting model. And these two levers had actually changed. So therefore, STMs needed to be redesigned, and that's exactly what we looked at in this particular instance that we are going to present in this paper.
So we were faced with a situation where we had to design a right approach to design a simulated test market. And this requirement arrives when we did a concept testing, which was for the super premium household care product. And there was 4 product concepts that were developed by the client, and each product had its unique benefits offering, and all of them were very niche. And there was very specific launch plan that all the concepts should be launched, were planned to launch only through e-com online platforms. So keeping that in mind, we had to develop something very new, very unique. And the player was a leading player in household care and the personal care segment. Yeah. So with all the briefs that we usually receive, so we had a usual discussion with the client, and we asked the client about their launch plan, what exactly they are going to do, how they are going to make the product available on shelf, how they are going to generate awareness through various channels. So these were our key agendas in our discussion, and I'll let Amrita speak about it. She was the lead person from the client side, so she'll give us some more details on this.
Thank you, Vidya and Ritesh. Is it audible? Am I audible? Mic? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Vidya, Ritesh, and hello, everyone. I think it's a very interesting topic and something that as marketeers and as people who lead the brand journey face on a daily basis. Because today, as we know, it's no more about a distinction between traditional advertising and digital. Digital is the core integrated part of our entire marketing plan. However, let me tell you a little bit of a story about how this whole project started. What happened is that we wanted to launch ourselves with a new brand in the whole laundry space. Now, we know in India, the laundry category is not new. It's a very, very established CPG category. And there are iconic brands over the last 5 to 6 decades, which all of us in all our households have and we use. These are brands which we use on a daily basis, probably, and we love them and trust them. Now imagine we want to launch and enter into such a category which is so established. Do you even think that we are going to be successful by launching another Me Too product in the laundry space? The answer is obvious, right? It's no. We are obviously not going to succeed. And that is why we decided, let us not just launch another Me Too laundry product. But yes, we want to encash on this huge 3 billion laundry category in India. So we said we would build a digital native brand. Now, obviously, it sounds very exciting, very fancy. A lot of startups are doing it, so let's do it. But how do we do it? Because obviously, we are faced with the regular standard tools and techniques of concept testing, which most large CPGs follow. So how would we actually test the concept? How would we break through these, regular stage gates of innovation that we have in all our organizations was the key question for us. So that's how we said that we started to work with, of course, the Nielsen team, and we co-created something. And I think that is what we will take you through, that how do you exactly launch something in the D2C space and ensure that you're doing a simulated test market.
Okay. So Amrita, could you please share more details on what was your proposed launch plan?
Absolutely, yeah. So as we said, now it sounds exciting, yes, that we want to launch ourselves with a D2C approach in the laundry category. It's a paradox, if you ask me. And why is it a paradox? Because obviously, when you look at laundry and the whole 3 billion laundry space that is in India, it is largely dominated by grocery shoppers, obviously, and those grocery shoppers are mostly shopping offline. Although we all know about the digital revolution and COVID and everything, but there are certain things which we in our country continue to shop through the regular channel, which is offline. So the paradox therefore comes in that we want to encash on this large opportunity, but we want to do it differently because we don't have the muscle to fight those two iconic big brands. So therefore we go digital. But then the question comes that if it's digital, it's niche, exactly what Ritesh was explaining. So how are we going to win? Are we even going to have the opportunity or the right to win? And therefore we said, let's look at a little bit on the shopper front, what's happening. So if the laundry category is $3 billion, okay, it's obviously a combination of online and offline. When you look at household care, and now I'm talking about household care, not just laundry. And obviously household care has got all the different multiple other categories, not just laundry. Entire household care online in terms of the laundry and grocery shoppers today only contributes 1 billion. So what does that mean? Unlike some of the other beauty and personal care categories in FMCG, unlike the foods and beverages space in FMCG, which is much more evolved online, household care as a mother segment is a laggard. So obviously if it's a laggard, and if we make a business plan to go completely digital, we are again heading for failure. So what was the solution? So we said we need to change the lens. What is change the lens? Of course, it's a laundry product which operates in household care. We said, from laundry shoppers, we will focus on lifestyle shoppers. Lifestyle shoppers in India, in the digital world, the value that they generate is $10 billion versus household care, which is 1 billion. It's a 10x increase on digital. So it will be a laundry product, but it will be targeted to these lifestyle shoppers. That was the change in the lens approach that we actually applied. And therefore, we came to a conclusion that we will build a digital native portfolio with 4 different premium laundry products, but not with the traditional approach and positioning, but rather approaching these lifestyle shoppers. And therefore came the need that we don't need to do the regular concept testing, which we all do for our FMCG launches. And then we said, if we have to test these 4 digital native propositions as part of a D2C portfolio, we had to co-create what this simulated test market would enable us to get, which is very different from a regular EPD concept testing approach. And that is exactly the journey which we embarked on. So I'll hand over to Ritesh to take us through to the next part of the presentation.
So Amrita, it looks like the product is going to be available only on online, and the awareness generation will happen through television and mostly e-com digital platforms, right?
Yeah. So exactly the way Ritesh put it. So these were the questions that were constantly coming from all our stakeholders. The first one was, as I explained, from the consumer front, which is the shopper. And as we said, we crossed that chasm because we said we're going to change the lens from just laundry grocery shoppers to lifestyle shoppers, which obviously have a 10x potential. Now, the second one, which is the most important thing when we launch a product in the FMCG categories, which is distribution. So we said that it is going to be digital only. Again, a paradox. So are you trying to tell me, this was the question, that the entire 3.3 laundry category is now going to shift digital, and you're going to see success by ignoring all the kirana stores, all the modern trade, and all of that. A typical question in the boardroom, right? So that was the question for us. We said, no, that won't happen. Why will it not happen? Now, let's go back and look at some interesting data points. If you look at modern trade in India, obviously, as we know, the Indian trade and distribution landscape today is predominantly all our general trade, which is mom and pop kirana stores. We do have modern trade, which has been growing excessively over the last few decades, which we know. Of course, there were ups and downs. Then we have e-commerce also, which is growing. But that's not enough. We are, again, the mindset that you're referring to is laundry. That's the reason why you see 70-30. So 70 GT, 30 is MT and e-commerce. Again, you're going back to the laundry mindset. I want you to change the mindset. How will you change the mindset? So when it comes to trade and distribution on digital, because we were targeting the lifestyle shoppers, which was a fundamental change in the consumer approach of targeting that we had, we said, let's look at the modern trade share of chain retail stores. What do I mean by that? We know today in the developed part of the world, we have the Walmarts and the Tesco's and the Costco's and all of the chain retail stores. So outside of India, all of these modern trade chain retail stores have a larger offline sales value, which is to the tune of 70% to their contribution of revenue, and 30% for the Walmarts of the world would be online. Obviously for them, because they are more offline, their larger contribution comes from offline. But in India, the scenario you would be shocked to hear is opposite. Because modern trade overall is not extremely large in India, when you look at the online to offline sales of these chain retail stores, the ratio is 70-30, which means 70% is online and 30% is offline. So that again changes the lens completely from a trade and distribution standpoint, supporting a launch business model of being digital first. So you would be again very surprised to know, we always talk about digital numbers and we say after China it's India. Again, yet again, one more place where we are number 2 in the world. So you can globally go and check the numbers for chain retail sales, online to offline ratio. We are 70-30, just behind China, which is 90-10. And all the other markets are actually opposite, which is 30-70. And of course, it is some of the other markets like Indonesia and others, which are also having a higher online to offline ratio of chain retail stores. So therefore, from both the shopper perspective as well as from the distribution perspective, we ensured that the size of price is actually 10 times by changing the lens and not just the typical grocery shopper, which made our business plan work. And this is what then we actually co-created from the simulated test market perspective to evaluate all our 4 new product propositions, which were the digital native portfolio for us to actually go and launch.
So with that background, it got us thinking about the research design and the way we should actually set it up given the online focus. What we knew from the very start was that the overriding principles of volume forecasting are not going to change. It would continue to be to get consumers exposed to the initiative, to capture their reactions to it, adjust for the typical overstatement that we see across key measures, and then overlay on it the marketing plans that Amrita, the client, spoke about in order to arrive at a forecast, the kind of sales that the initiative is likely to garner in market. But with this online plan, the strategy that the client had, we had certain questions about the design in our mind. How do we expose the concept to consumers? Should it be tailored to the way in which consumers actually shop online? What should be the extent of information that should be given about the new launch to consumers, given that the situation where they're actually getting exposed to the product and communication about it is going to be different from what we've typically been used to in traditional marketing? So the research design was customized to reflect the online availability of the product. The concept had to be exposed to consumers, certainly, But then they should also be given the option of actually double-clicking on the product and trying and getting more information if they wanted to, which is typically how we actually go about shopping online. And the test product had to be seen within a competitive setup. Preferably, it had to be shown with a web shop-like simulation. The target group had to be online shoppers when it came to grocery and household products, because that was the TG that we were going to. And of course, in terms of marketing support, one had to take into account the online distribution as well as the digital media that were going to be resorted to in order to create awareness. What we finally adopted was a 2-module design. So in module 1, the concept was exposed to the TG, and the regular volumetric key measures were captured, purchase interest, liking, and so on and so forth. In module 2, the consumer was first taken to a web shop and was allowed to scroll through, click on the products, which then took them to the product page if they wanted to, or they were allowed to even add the products to cart or even buy on that page itself. Diagnostic questions were also asked to the consumer in both the modules in order to understand their e-shopping behavior. Now, why did we choose a 2-module design? Module 1 would represent our regular, shopping, regular traditional launch, irrespective of whether the product gets launched online or offline. We could actually run a forecast. Module 2 imitated the e-com distribution. It also enabled us to build on diagnostics related to e-com shopping. So here's what the shop looked like. Go to the next one.
So the client, we finally aligned the marketing plan with the client, where the product was supposed to be available on websites like Flipkart, Amazon, Grocers, and other online shopping websites where the product would be launched. And then also client aligned with us the advertisement, the awareness plan through television, through other digital platforms like social media, influencers, and some other similar platforms. And of course, about the consumer's behavior, the scores of module 1 and module 2 were clubbed together, and they were factored together to adequately apply the weights that could represent the consumer's online behavior. My bad, I forgot to click. Yeah. And finally, when we computed the volumes for this particular exercise, we could see that there were multiple scenarios that were created, where the base scenario we assumed was a support only through television. And if we consider that as a base, there were multiple scenarios where you can see that if we include the television along with the digital media plan, the volume uplift we could see of around 49%. Whereas if we reduce the television support to half, and if we keep the digital media support as is, it was giving us better ROI. And the interesting finding that we could see that when we were supporting our initiative with pure digital support, that was giving us the best ROI out of various scenarios that we tested. So that was the overall finding that we had.
So yes, the methodology in this case was dictated by the client's marketing strategy, which was largely based on e-com. If the e-com focus was not that strong, then perhaps we could have gone with our traditional approach, where we would have used e-com as a channel of distribution. But because the strategy was to go only e-com, this was a 2-module design that we looked at. Were there any limitations to this approach? Yes, certainly. Given that e-com forecasting is still in its nascent stages, it's quite probable that further developments are required before this method actually becomes completely reliable. And that will happen only when sufficient validations are actually carried out, just the way we have a lot of validations with our traditional forecasting. Another limiting factor is a lack of reliable sales data across different websites for some of the categories. Without this availability of adequate sales data, both volumes and shares, one cannot be really very sure about the accuracy of the forecast, but time will tell. However, the step to customize STMs for the digital world is a need of the hour, and even if the methodology is not crafted in stone yet, we are pretty confident that it will soon be.